Yeah, same. I like it, yeah. And because the mics are actually really good mics, they can be a little further away and catch everything, which is nice. All right. All right. So we are live and recording.
What a week it's been.
All right. Well, welcome y'all to this week's episode of Duck and Reality. We're going to do things a little different this week. Raul is here with me again. Hello, Raul.
Hello again.
This time we're not going to focus so much on Raul's story. We're going to kind of get into mine. I am so not ready to do this on so many levels. To be honest with y'all and keep it real, Raul and I sat down one Sunday afternoon to talk about relationships and kind of get into my story a little bit, but we were a couple cocktails in, and so that will probably never be released. Maybe parts of it, but most of it won't be. And then we thought about redoing this over the weekend, and we delayed it because of certain life events. And so also, an episode didn't go out this week. I didn't feel it was appropriate, even though there was one ready in the chamber. I just needed to take a moment off this week from everything and everyone, because we just lost, not only myself, but the whole island lost someone that was very near and dear to all of our hearts. In a really shocking and unexpected way. So part of me doing this too is in honor of him, is because he gave me so much shit about not putting myself out there and being afraid. And we have so many plans on what we would do with not only the podcast, but our side podcast and his stuff, and getting him refocused on his creativity and passions. So our friend, John Wilkie, died this week, and we're not sure why yet, but it was at no fault of his own from what we know. And I don't think the family would mind me sharing that part. There's been lots of speculation and lots of whatever, and to those people that don't know him and want to speculate, go fuck yourself. I had people come up to me and say things and put his name in sentences that should never have belonged in. And if you knew him, then they would never have belonged in that sentence. Yeah. So anyone that asks me those questions, I just say to themselves, mind your fucking business. I was kind of, and have been kind of, torn apart from losing him, and then torn apart by the way some people dealt with grief. And I don't like to judge. It's not my thing. And I don't know everyone's relationships and everyone's everything. Yeah. But people that would say, like, well, I have questions. I don't give a fuck what your question is. Were you sitting here with him every day this week or every day for the last year and a half? No, you weren't. Yeah. So your questions don't mean fucking shit to me. And, like, that's the real truth about happens when you lose someone you care about, is the people that want to make it about them. If people were making huge, like, have you heard? Have you heard? And that has gotten back to me, go fuck yourself. I probably won't talk to you anymore. Oh, yeah. Those people that were like, have you heard what happened? Have you heard what happened? And other people had to check you and say, didn't know you knew him that much. And you thought, oh, but you, and your comeback was, well, I could have known him. No, bitch, you didn't. Right. So stop making it about you. Wow. And like, my mom keeps telling me I got to release it in a different way, but I'm not. I'm angry. I'm angry at the universe, and I'm angry at the people that keep trying to make it about them. Yeah. There are people that have loved that man for decades and have been there for him and with him. And to those people, I am sorry. And I am sorry that you have to talk to such assholes that feel like they are deserving of something from this. You're not. Like, we may never find out what happened, and I'm not very close to his family. To a lot of people don't know that we were good friends, and it doesn't matter what they think or know. Yeah. Like what happened or what had happened or how he's gone, it won't really change anything. He's gone. So why these people that don't know him are asking these questions just makes me want to stab them.
So I have to wonder. As you mentioned, people have different ways of processing things. And, you know, I didn't know him very well. And of course, the curiosities start popping up. But the better sense in me knew, don't ask any questions.
Right. And if you have questions, I get it. I have questions. But the day he died, the day after he died, going to the people that just lost him and being like, well, what happened? I want to know. That's not your time to do it.
Not.
Be respectful of the people that just lost someone they love. Think about how you would feel if someone you love just lost. Do you want to explain what happened to people? Even if you knew they were dying, even if you have someone in your life that was really sick, the day or two after you lost them, do you want someone being like, well, what happened? It doesn't matter what happened. They're not here anymore.
Yeah. I guess I'm thinking be more sensitive with your questions, and be supportive to those that are deeply suffering.
And like I said, I don't want to judge people. Everyone grieves differently, and I'm trying to be very, be kinder than necessary. But it's hard when you're the one that's like hurting and sad. And, I had people telling me about the scene and about this and about that and about shit they had no reason to be talking about and no reason to be talking to anyone else about.
Right.
And a couple of those people had to then come back to me and say things because of all the things that have happened. I'm like, yeah, don't talk to me about shit you don't know. And if you're talking to me about the scene, you really don't know shit.
Right. Sometimes there are people that are just looking for fodder to add to their own story to tell someone else, and that is not right.
No, or people that came to me and were like, well, I just lost this person, and I just lost this person, and now I just lost him. You didn't lose him because he wasn't really in your life. So take his list off of your fucking trauma calendar. And that's the stuff that I don't understand. And when people, this is the one thing I'll never understand about people, is that when something tragic happens to someone else and you try to make it yours to make it seem like you're in their boat, like you're not in my boat.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be in your boat. I'm not, your brother died, so I'm so sad now. My whole life has changed. No, my day-to-day life hasn't changed because your brother died. It's really sad for you that your brother died, and I'm here to talk to you about it.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to then tell you about all the people that close to me that died, because it's not adding to your, it's minimizing what you're going through.
Yeah.
I'm going to listen to your loss because that's your loss.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to talk about it, then I'm not going to talk about it. And I'm not going to keep bringing up the things that happened to me, or telling you how you need to talk to me about it because it'll help you.
Yeah.
That's not what helps you if that's not how you operate. It's just like taking a minute and taking a moment to say to that person, you're in grief, what do you need? And I've heard a lot about people telling me what I need for them. I don't want you to be alone. I want to know how you're doing. Okay. That's great that you want that, but you're not asking me anything about what I want or need.
Yeah.
And so, like grief is hard, and I don't want to judge someone for their grief, and I don't want to minimize someone else who's hurting. But for those people that hadn't been there or I've never seen you interact with him when you've come into the same space as him, who is now like crying and distraught. I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
I don't have time for that any day. Never mind when it's someone who I love that has passed and maybe that's a warning because I am in grief, and maybe that's I've gone through this with people I've loved too many times to deal with the bullshit of people who are making it about them, or who want answers that don't deserve answers. If you don't think his family and I and everyone that really loved him and knew him want answers, then you're crazy. But why you feel like we owe you or anyone owes you an explanation? They don't. I just met his brother the day he died. I don't deserve any explanation. His brother does.
Yeah.
Do I want one? Yes. Will I ever get one? I have no idea.
Yeah.
Because it's not my place to ask or to push or to anything.
Yeah. Being that this is so fresh in you right now, and the nerves are exposed and you're very vulnerable, I wanted to touch on the fact that you mentioned that you've had lots of loss.
I have. When we were talking about how to start this or how to talk about kind of who I am, my life is marked with tragedy. I have every excuse to be a cynical, evil old lady. Like I am. Tragedy is really what marks all of my timestamps. And that's a hard place to say that you're from, but it is.
Yeah.
I grew up in it. I was there when my grandfather started dying as a kid. I remember going to the hospital as in first and second grade and him being hooked up with tubes and everything. He died as a young man. He lived a hard life, and he died from smoking, basically. So I was 9 the first time and someone that I loved died, and I have clear memories of that. At 12, my aunt died, and she was the closest person to me in my life. She was my touchstone. She had cancer. She beat it the first time. The second time she didn't. Yeah. And we as a family walked through that whole process with her the second time. When she was on hospice, she was in my grandmother's house. My dad's family is really big, and they're close, but in a out of necessity kind of way. He's one of 13. And when you have that many kids in a house, it's hard to be close to the people that you grew up with. But that chaos and that family dynamic taught me so much, not only about people, but about what happens when something tragic happens. I had a front row seat to watch not only my aunt know she was dying and pass on as much wisdom as she could to any one of us that would listen, but I also got to watch how, that's 12 siblings, spouses, kids, that's upwards of 50 people I got to watch and how they reacted to this one person, this light in our family, this she was the glue that kept a lot of people together. And so when she died, there was a huge fracture in our family. Her immediate family fell apart. Her husband at the time couldn't handle it and went to drugs. Her kids came to live with different people in the family until it was, solidified who they would live with. Their lives as they knew it were over.
Yeah. Wow.
And so to watch that as a 12-year-old and to know, this was my person. My mom and I didn't get along since I was a little kid. I love my mom, and she did her best for me, but we never understood each other because we came into the world very opposite. My mom is a person that when bad stuff happens, she just doesn't talk about it. I joke a lot of times that she's a Stepford wife, and she gets really mad. Yeah. But she is, and that's who she was. Or, I think part of her is getting better about it because of me. No. Because I'm a, live out loud kind of this is what's happening person.
Right.
And she made me very private, which is a good thing and a bad thing. But also in that time of watching someone die and watching all the repercussions of that, it was dangerous to talk to some people because her husband was a drug addict. And as much as his story isn't mine to share, that's what he was. That affected my life in huge ways. Yeah. We couldn't go to his house anymore after a while because it wasn't safe for us as kids. Yeah. There was people coming in and out and drugs going on. And, to be the person that said to my family, hey, we can't go there anymore. Uncle Bob is not well, That's a huge thing for an 11-year-old, 12-year-old to have to do and say and contend with, And then as a kid, I was told, that's not my business and it's not I don't need to know what's going on. Well, I was just in it. I'm the one that alerted you to it. So I do know what's going on. So let's talk about it. And that was not allowed. Yeah. Because I was too young. Well, if I was, not too young to be the one that warned you all because no one's paying close enough attention because you're all too sad. Which I get, but also I do know what's going on. So someone talk to me and explain to me how we're going to fix it. And that was never, the connect was never made there. Because I was a kid, it wasn't my business, it was adult stuff. But when you're the kid that's in it, it's not adult stuff anymore, it's just life stuff.
And to have that suppressed in you has a huge impact, So I'm curious, learning that your life has been marked with all of these traumas from your grandfather being your first experience of somebody that you love passing. Do you remember how you felt and how you coped? Yeah. How you coped with it at that time at 9 years old?
I do. So he died on Thanksgiving morning. And my family decided not to let us all know because they didn't want to ruin the holiday. So I found out because I've always been a curious person. My mother will tell you I'm nosy. I'm not, because nosy implies something derogatory almost. And I'm not ever trying to find out.
It's a gossiper.
Yeah. And I had never wanted to know things out of gossip. I've always wanted to know. I have because can't be catty. Let's, we all have our flaws. And I can be, but it's not what's driven me. My curiosity has always driven me. I grew up in always straddling two worlds. Like, I was never enough of my mom's family to be that. To be like, my mom's got 4 sisters, and they're like the first coven I ever wanted to get into. You know, like, they have this bonds from their childhood, they are ridiculously close, my mom and her sisters. Mm-hmm. As cousins, we all refer to them as the aunts. And it's like, well, you know what the aunts will say, because they are almost like this one governing board. Mm-hmm. And even a few of my uncles will say the same thing, but they refer to them as the sisters.
Okay, yeah.
So, you know, it's like this force that's been in our lives. And in that side of the family, it was mostly boys when I was a kid. So it was like, go play with the boys. But if I got hurt, you can't cry. What do you expect? You're playing with the boys. Mm-hmm. If you're going to go play with the boys, you can't cry. Well, if I have a bloody nose, I can't cry, but Jimmy can. Mm-hmm. Like, his nose is bleeding and he gets to cry, but I can't because I'm a girl. Like, that to me was always fucked up.
Yeah.
And then it would be like, well, you can't come here because this is the adults' conversations. Okay, well, I can't play with the boys. I can't come here. Like, where do I go?
Yeah.
So I would like go off and do something and it'd be like, don't be the weird kid in the closet. Like, get out of the pantry. Like, okay, well, I can't be in the pantry by myself being a weird kid because that. So it was always like I didn't have a place to fit in.
Until you moved to the Bay Area.
Kind of, yeah. Exactly. Here I get to be all my weird little self and nobody cares.
Yes.
And it's embraced, you know. Uh-huh. My dad's family was this big, chaotic scene that was just kids on kids on kids, which was fun, but it was almost too much sometimes, you know, because those kids all had each other and nobody cared if you were crying or if you got thrown off something because, like, buck up, kid. Like, no one else is going to care. Work harder. Be better, you know? Right. So I never felt like I was in this. I had a place. And so I think some of that has carried me through of always, like, being curious, too. Like, how do those people fit in so well? Like, how do you know how to act in all of those different situations when no one was figuring out the rules to fitting in? They were just being them, and if they fit in, great, and if they didn't, go fuck yourselves. Right. But I never had that as a kid. It was always like, let me shapeshift to fit into what you want me to be.
So it sparked an interesting thought that when you're asking, like, how do you know how you're supposed to act? We really don't. It's situational from one person's experience to the next, from one person passing to the next. You're going to react a little bit different. And that's why I was wondering when your grandfather passed and how you dealt with it then.
Yeah. Oh, I guess I didn't. I guess I got away from that question because I didn't want to answer it.
I held on to it.
I didn't. I was really, because no one told me directly. And so I found out, I was sitting under a kitchen table when I found out. Because I knew something was wrong. The vibe was off of the whole day. Yeah. And so I had gone into the kitchen to do something. And then, like I would as a kid, I just slid under a table to just get out of the way. And I'm short. So it was very easy a lot of times to move without being seen. Mm-hmm. And I knew if I was quiet enough, nobody would notice me. And if I was quiet and in the corner for a while, I could sit until they forgot I was there sometimes. Yeah. And so that's how I found out. And then when his funeral came up and everything came up, my mom was too distraught to bring me. And so I didn't get to go. But I was told it was because I was too young, because I was a girl. That I didn't get to go to his wake and his funeral because of that. Because my cousin, who was younger than me by 2 months, he went. And I was like, why can he go, but I can't? Well, he can handle it because he's a boy. No. Wow. I could kick that kid's ass since we came out of the womb. Like, that was not, doubt. Being tough was not a part of it. And so I think that kind of changed a lot of me.
Yeah.
And then to be 12, to be told, no, you can't know this. Well, I do know this. I'm the one that told you this is
regarding
happening.
Your aunt.
Yeah. And then to have things, to be told like, no, you don't have to worry about it. No, that's not for your concern. It is my concern. I made you aware of it. Right. So how am I now in trouble for knowing stuff that you didn't know? Yeah. And so it was always that kind of push and pull thing, where I would go to adults sometimes and be like, I need to know this. And they're like, well, your mother doesn't want us talking to you about that. I don't care what she wants. I know this and I'm struggling. Yeah. Well, her feelings are more important than yours.
Right. So from 9 to 12, 9 years old to 12 years old, when your aunt passed, how did you respond? How did you,
I started babysitting.
you started babysitting, but how did you react to the news of your aunt's passing compared to?
I saw all of it.
You saw all of it.
Yeah, she was jaundiced before we were there.
Right.
My dad and her were extremely close. She lived with my parents when they first had their first apartment together.
Right.
She and my dad were, out of all of their siblings, she was super close. The day she found out her cancer had come back, I was with her. Like, her kids and me were inseparable. I would go anywhere with that woman. So I was there for all of that.
Right.
We were all there the day that she passed away. We knew it was coming, and still it was devastating and hard. And, her wake and funeral were widely attended, and there wouldn't be keeping me away from that. There wasn't an option at that point. And it rocked my whole world. And the fact that I knew there was people I couldn't talk to about it, I, from a very young age, was like, my friends don't get this. Like, things at school just didn't mean as much to me. School didn't mean as much to me. Because I was like, no matter how hard you work and what you do, it just all ends sometimes.
Right.
And I think that shaped a lot of who I was or who I am still to this day. I think it gave me like not a lot of bullshit for people. Like, you can lie to yourself, but it's all going to end someday, and it may not even mean anything. And I think it gave me the gift of like, life is too short, so I'm not going to do the things that don't make me happy. I'm not going to try to fit into your world, because fuck it, you can do everything right, and you can be the light of so many people's lives, and cancer can kill you anyways.
Yeah. So then this was the first funeral that you attended, if I'm understanding, or there may have been in between, but your grandfather...
The first person I loved,
The first person that you loved, okay. And do you feel that you were able to grieve in a different way, having had experienced the passing of your grandfather and then your aunt?
I don't know if I did, because I think I don't know if I've ever learned to grieve. And I've been thinking about like wanting, with all of this stuff too, is I want to bring someone on that teaches you. No one teaches you how to grieve. There are the cycles of grief if you've read books or whatever, or, people talk about it, but I don't know if I've ever learned how to grieve.
Yeah.
I think there's a part of me that just opens a little box and shoves it all in there and closes it and never goes back to it.
That sounds like your first experience with your grandfather.
Yeah.
You're too young. You're not a boy. Just put it away.
Yeah. And because I, in that mode was trying to take care of everybody else, take care of her kids, I'd been running interference for so long with them anyways. And then trying to make sure my parents were okay and this person was okay, and watching my grandmother and how does she bury a child, and then realizing it's not the first child she's buried, that, everyone in that family had already buried a child. And then it was like the curiosity of like, what else do I not know about my family?
Yeah.
My dad's family, he had long been moved out of their house, but there was a huge house fire that my grandmother used to own 2 houses in Jamaica Plain. And they burned down. And one of them, the fire was so bad, one of my aunts perished because of her burns. One of my uncles almost perished.
Wow.
Those houses and that property hadn't been rebuilt for most of my life. We would drive down every once in a while. My dad would say, like, this is where the houses were, and blah, blah, blah. And, there's newspaper articles. And my brother's a Boston fireman. He met the fireman that saved our aunt and uncle's lives. And that's a beautiful moment to have. But there's also this moment in our family that's marked by tragedy.
Right.
And there's so much questions about that fire and how to start and all of this other things that was marked in our family forever. And my grandmother every once in a while would talk about it, but not very often. She, like my mom, although, very two sides of a different coin, my dad's mom, she was also a woman who didn't talk about a lot. She came from Canada when she was 16. And that was, I sometimes would sit with her and have tea and try to pull the stories of her life out of her. Because it was curious to me, like, how do you decide to come to a different country at 16 with no one? And how did you do all of this? And, and she would share some, but not there was always a feeling of her not telling us everything. And then after she died, we found out so much more of her life. And she had had another child. And, you know, when she first came down from Canada, she had left a child in Canada. And there was never any discussion.
Yeah.
Legit, my dad told me the story of how Uncle Joe showed up when, you know, my dad was 15 or 16 and this kid showed up on their doorstep and was like, "Hi, I'm your brother from Canada."
Wow.
And my dad was like, "Excuse me?" And my grandmother was just like, "Yeah, that's Joe. End of story."
Wow.
Like, it was never discussed.
Yeah.
And I remember I was probably in my late teens, early 20s. I must have been late teens when one day I said to my dad, like, "How come Uncle Joe's last name is different?"
Mm-hmm.
Like, wait, it just dawned on me. And like, wait, that's Nan's maiden name, right? And he's like, no, it's not. It's close, but it's a different spelling. And, you know, she had a husband or, you know,
Yeah.
and she was 16. She probably didn't have a husband, but like she got pregnant and left her child in Canada for life to make a better life.
Right. Wow.
And when he eventually showed up, she was just like, "Okay, yeah, that's part of our world," but never discussed it before then.
Yeah.
And I,
wow.
that time, had 5 or 6 kids in this country.
Yeah.
And
That's crazy.
that was just how it was. Like,
Yeah.
when she died, there was so many questions about her life. And even when she was dying,
Yeah.
we would ask her and she just was like, "It's not your business."
Oh.
Like, no, it is our business. It's part of our story.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of origin. And she just never, which is probably also why I think origin stories and that kind of history is a little bit like, yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of people don't know where they come from.
So I was sort of priming you in my questions regarding your grandfather and your aunt to this most recent experience in your life and someone that you cared very deeply for. And how do you feel that you've grown as a griever?
I don't know if I have. And I think this has kind of brought some of that up for me is I've been trying to give myself the space to cry and mourn and lose it. I've probably done a better job of grieving this because I've been taking some time away from everyone. I've been taking some time to think about the things that won't happen now.
Mm-hmm.
Or the things that need to happen, but in a new way, to honor and to respect him and us and what we had talked about and thought about. It's definitely shifted everything, and I'm trying to give myself a few days before I make any big decisions on what that means and looks like.
Yeah.
Because my whole world perspective has shifted and changed again.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you lose people like this, especially unexpected ways, it rocks you to your core. And if it doesn't, maybe that means you're doing something wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I think before I would try not to let it rock my world. I would try to not let it change anything. I would try to like hold on to the what was.
Mm-hmm.
Where with this, I think I'm open to the what is.
Yeah.
And, you know, I had a list of plans that I was going to do and work I was going to get into and commitments I was going to make and things that I was kind of building. And all of that right now feels like some of it feels pointless and some of it feels like it was distractions in other ways. And some of it feels like busy work I had created for myself to not be living.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be real honest. Part of me has been keeping him at arm's length so I would not get my heart broken. So I would not feel this kind of pain because I knew that we were not what was meant to be. I knew that we were not what, you know, many people might have thought were forever. But I knew that there was something between us that was different and that was real. Mm-hmm. And that scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
I've been scared to get into things because I think I'm still so broken from where my life was. Mm-hmm. And now I have to question, did I miss out on something beautiful because of my fear? Or was I smart to keep it at arm's length because I knew my heart was going to be broken in any way? Mm-hmm. What part of my instinct was keeping me safe? What part of my instinct was helping. Yeah. What part of my instinct wanted him in my life, but in a way that was helpful for both of us.
Yeah.
You know, like, should I have just been stupidly in love until this happened? Like, but I knew part of me wasn't, or I knew it was half in, half out. Like, my gut kept telling me something, but I didn't know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I don't think he did anything to cause this or anything to, maybe it quickened the pace because of life decisions, but maybe it didn't. Maybe this would have happened whether I was wrapped up in bed with him or not.
Sure.
And then what does that look like? Well, I wake up in bed with someone or I find them the next day or a day later, you know, like all of that is kind of running through my head and I'm letting it, which is not something I probably have ever done.
Right.
And it's hard and it sucks. And the waves of grief are at times untenable.
Yeah.
Like and in those moments, I take a deep breath and I'm like, okay, I can't feel this anymore. So what can I feel next? Or I'll go for a walk, or I'll call someone and say, like, this part is the part I'm stuck on right now.
Right.
And so I probably have gotten better at grief. I probably have more tools because I've learned a bit, but I feel like I still maybe don't do a good enough job of it. I probably don't feel like I know what I'm doing when I'm grieving. And that's okay, I guess, too.
Yeah.
I'm doing better now than I've ever done before with grieving.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know if that really answers your question.
No, it truly does. And what it brings to mind for me is the tools that you developed in your younger years, of running and hiding under the table, right? And you're doing that now. You know, I need to not be around anyone. I need to hide away.
Yeah. For the first 3 days I was out, I was in it, and I could feel myself jumping into that I need to take care of everybody else phase. From the moment it happened, I needed to make sure that this person and that person, they were okay because they had a bigger loss. They have known him longer. And I know that's part of what I get from my family, like jump into, we need to make arrangements. We need to do this. We need to make sure these people eat. These people are taken care of. So part of me jumped into that. And then part of me knew I was just numb and not feeling it and needed to, take a moment.
Mm-hmm. And then the other one that you referred to is stuffing everything into a box. Though you've developed to where now you're like, I realize I'm not feeling my best right now, but I'm going to reach out and say, hey, let's go for a walk. I need someone to talk to. I'm not understanding how to handle this right now. So it sounds like you have grown a little bit, and we're never done growing with it.
And I think also some of that comes from the skills of the people that I've lost in between that and now. You know, from 12 to now, I've lost so many more people, other uncles and aunts. My dad went through a time where in less than a year, he lost 3 siblings.
Wow.
You know, so being there for that, my mom's brother died not suddenly, but in not great circumstances. He was just really unhealthy his whole life, and that eventually caught up with him. I was there when my mom's mom, you know, my grandmother and I were very, very close. And so her passing and my mom's best friend's passing. And there's just been, you know, my best friend's dad died when we were in freshman year in high school.
Yeah.
Like I'll never get the sound of my mom finding out her, you know, when she got that phone call from her best friend that we'd been on vacations with them. And Karen's been my best friend since kindergarten. Her brother and my brother are best friends. Like we were two families of 4 that just synced up, you know?
Right.
And when he died in that phone call, like I'll never not hear that from my mom. Because legit, when my brother and I heard it and looked at each other, we for a split second thought it was our own dad. And then realized, no, he's home. What happened? And like the second most obvious thing was who it was. And to deal with that aftermath and the way things happened after that. And, you know, just through the years of that, like having stuff like that happen again and again. And, you know, not less than a year ago, my other close friend, her dad and my dad have become best friends, died. And we share a birthday. And, you know, I've known that man for 40 years. So like losing all of those people and being here and not there for that. And, you know, I was getting ready to go away on a vacation. And I was like, I think I have to cancel my vacation because my other dad just died. And all of them being like, no, you don't do that. You don't do this. Like, you go on that and you honor him by that. Like, and learning that at times your grief can look different. Your respect for someone's life can look different. And learning that, like, what I grew up with and how we respect death is very different than kind of the modern world, and not judging that. I think all of those have helped me. I think 40 years of losing people in different ways. Yeah. That's the blessing of having a huge family, is that you get to learn and have that front row seat to see how people deal with things. But you also have to deal with those life events, one at a younger age and two on a grander scale. Yeah. I have over 40 aunts and uncles. Yeah, that's blood huge. And not. Like, that's a lot of people to love and to know and to not love. True. You know, like, having a family that big made me understand that you cannot like someone and love them at the same time. That they cannot like you, but they'll be there because of a sense of love or a sense of
familial obligation.
Yes. Yeah. And that sometimes your familial obligations are just that. Yeah. And sometimes it's okay to walk away from those. Like, I got so many lessons in humanity from having this big family. Yeah. And from one that's super close, like ridiculously close. My mom and her oldest sister, up until COVID, had never not spent Christmas together. Oh. Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. They're 70. Oh, that's beautiful. And the only reason they didn't spend it was because they were both nervous about the virus. Right. I will tell you this, they will never not spend another one together. And they're mad that COVID robbed them of the one that they've lost.
I bet. Yeah.
Like, that's a special thing and a special bond that most families don't have. You know, my dad and his sisters, like, could never talk again and they'd be fine. My mom and her sisters, they go 2 weeks without talking, and they've talked to all the other ones except each other about a whole thing. You know, like, they'll never not go on a vacation without each other. Yeah. Still to this day.
Yeah. I think that's amazing.
It is. But it's also, you know, it's a different way of living, and that's a lot of opinions to have in your life all the time. Yeah. Because that's what happens when you love people that deeply. They think all of their opinions and ways that you should live your life are facts, right, which can get really confusing.
I'm sure. Yeah. So I'm curious now. How has this road of loss, these 40 years of loss, changed your perspective, and how are you moving forward going to be more cognitive of the precious time that you have with those around you?
I think it gave me the gift of, part of me is not really cared about what you think about me. Part of me cares so fucking much. And I think the part of me that was a people pleaser for the last few years has kind of almost won out. I think part of me stayed in my old relationship for so long because I wanted to make other people happy, because I knew me destroying that part of my life destroyed the version of me that existed in their head, destroyed like the life that has always kind of been presented in front of me. You know, you find someone, you get married, you have kids, you work hard, you go on vacation sometimes. Like, that was the standard life. And I'd always known I didn't want to live that life. And part of me kind of fought against it. And part of me kind of gave into it. I had this person that I did love and that wanted a quiet life. And I thought we'd balance it out. Like, he'd let me live kind of free and loud while still having this safe place to come home to. And when that wasn't happening, knew I couldn't stay in it. I knew part of me felt guilty for trying to settle. And because had those people still been alive, they wouldn't have let me settle. You know, my grandmother, my mom's mom, and I were extremely close. And the first time I left Boston, I didn't want to leave her. Right. And when I left and I came back a few months later, she was like, look at you, you're glowing. You moving was the best decision you ever made for yourself.
Oh.
And she knew I needed that freedom to break out of the people pleasing, to really be able to stand in my own power and not have that fear. She knew I needed that more than I did. And so by her telling me, like, it's good that, come back to me often, but stay away, was a gift that I can't ever thank her for.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this latest kind of loss has reminded me to be less scared, because it was something he often would tell me. Like, he had no cares about what you thought, or he was who he was and he was unapologetic about it. And I would sometimes roll my eyes or call him a dork or whatever. And he'd be like, you want to be the same way? And I did, and he saw that in me and kind of helped try to foster it and, encourage it. And I think this loss compiled with all the other ones is probably going to make me less fearless, or more fearless rather, and less afraid, because I have been afraid. I have been, whether it be a woman or, being a different vibe than where I've come from, like me letting my light shine has never felt safe.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been told I need to do this or do that to fit into this family dynamic. Or, when I've let my light shine, there's been other bad things that have happened that, I just have been afraid to, because I didn't know how to stand in my power and be fearless. And so I think this probably will, or I hope that this will help encourage and get rid of some of that fear.
Yeah.
I hope that it will remind me that I have to follow all of my dreams and live life to the absolute fullest, not only for myself, not only because it's so short, but because all those people that I've loved that don't get to anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's not only just for me, it's now to help carry them through.
Yeah.
To know that they wanted to do more and that they would have if they had had the chance. Now I have this chance. I am still here. I am still seeking and finding my joy and my passions.
Yes.
And now I feel like I need to do that even more.
Right. So share with us some examples of when you know that your light was shining, when you were in your joy, because you invite us all, find your joy. I want to know when you've known, I'm the shit right now. Come on.
I don't really know how many of those moments I've had, if I'm honest.
That's why I'm asking.
I know. And that makes me feel sad for myself in a way. God. There's been moments behind the bar. There's been moments just in life, huge moments. I don't have one that I can specifically pull, which makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable.
Sure.
And small, and I hate that feeling.
And you recognize that is where you're headed, where you're attracting that to yourself. You were just saying.
It makes me so uncomfortable to be the center of any attention.
Though, do you have to be the center of attention to have your light shining? Not necessarily so.
No, but it feels like one goes in the same.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be the center of some kind of attention at some point. To even this podcast feels like I'm trying to make myself the center of attention. Not even this specific one. I mean, just having a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Part of me feels so much of that imposter syndrome of, why does anyone want to listen to me? Why does anyone want to talk to me? Why does anyone think that my opinions matter? And then sometimes I have this moment where it's, why wouldn't my opinion matter?
Mm-hmm.
And part of it is I can hear one of my aunts being like, nobody wants to hear what you have to say because your opinion doesn't matter.
And someone else saying you talk too much during your own podcast.
Right. Yeah. So I have all of these things that I know are not my own voice. Mm-hmm. And it's been trying to cut away all of those those are where the imposter syndrome comes in, right? And maybe that is how imposter syndrome is started, is that it's all those voices that aren't ours, that live in our head, that keep us afraid. And the only reason those voices and those people have tried to keep us afraid is because they were afraid.
Correct.
You know, like, I get that. I don't always get, but in my mind and knowing and reading and trying to learn as much as I have, I understand, you know, educationally, I understand that the voices that I always hear aren't my own. But in the moments, it doesn't feel like that.
Yeah.
Like in the living of it, it doesn't feel like those voices don't belong to me. And so it's just learning and to strengthen my own voice and to know which voices in my head pop up. And is that one really mine, or does that belong to someone who should not have any real estate in my brain? Right.
And that's a great point, because I was wondering if you were able to objectify the voices in your head and see them as a person actually telling you, you shouldn't do this and you're no good at that. What would you say to them now? Would you be like, fuck you?
Right.
Of course I can.
Yeah, I think I'm getting better at that.
Good.
But I think I'm still not there, which is why I probably still drag my feet and not have cameras here and not have, you know, there are things that I know that I should be doing to foster and get this out and do more. But there's also kind of respecting the journey that I'm on and saying, like, this is what I can give so far. So even though it may not be perfect, even though it may not be how it quote unquote should be, or like, if you want to be successful, these are all the things that you have to do. And I'm taking those steps gradually and to say, okay, that I know where I should be. Right. Like, and I know if, you know, Gary Vaynerchuk or one of these other $1 million people who know how all of this stuff works is saying, like, I need to be doing A, B, and C. Okay, well, I'm going to do A and B dash 74, and I'll work my way up to B1, you know, like, and knowing that, okay, from my comfort level right now, this is what I can do. And I'm trying to give myself the grace to be okay with it. Yeah. Some days I'm not, some weeks I'm not, some weeks I need to be like, I'm like, I need to do this and do photos, and I need a photo shoot of myself, and I need all of these things in order to show anyone else that this podcast means the world to me, or that these steps that I'm taking mean everything. Yeah. But I don't have the confidence to do that stuff, and I don't have the gumption, or, you know, I have a fear around it, and that's okay. And I don't have to always talk about it, and I don't always have to do what the experts say I need to. Yeah. I'm going to do this small, and I'm going to do it in increments the way I'm building my own confidence to make sure that, one, I can do it, and two, I can be consistent with it. Yeah. Because on some weeks when I hurt my own feelings, like, that's what it is. It's hurting my own feelings about it. And then I don't want to do anything. And then it gets my depression monsters up, and then it gets this, and my anxiety starts to grow, and then it's just causing it's shooting myself in the foot just to shoot myself in the foot. Right. So I think some of that is learning to be okay with where I'm at and know where I want to go, and think, okay, I can do that in baby steps. And I can do that in a way that doesn't feel quite as scary, and that still honors everyone that I want to honor, and maybe gives me a little too much cushion or bubble wrap, you know? And sometimes that's okay. And sometimes I need to be like, bitch, get over yourself and fucking do it. Right. And it's walking that line. Yeah. I mean, talking about all this is extremely uncomfortable. And part of me wants to take this whole conversation away from the deaths that I've gone through and been like, you know what else I've been through?
Well, absolutely. And I hope that we get to move into that. But
it also is kind of, all of it together is who I am. Like, you know, the tragedy hasn't just been death. Unfortunately, it's been the grief of losing what I thought would be my career, what I thought would be my life. Like, when I think about the grief, I mean, maybe it's really that my life has been marked with grief instead of tragedy, but it's both, you know? Tragedy doesn't have to just be losing someone. Normally that's what we think of, and it is. And right now that's kind of our reality is we just lost, or I've just lost someone that shifts my whole world. That's someone I spent days with out of a week, you know, hours, sometimes every day, hours with. Yeah. So like my day-to-day life will change without him in it. Right. You know, and that is something that's really difficult. But the vibe of my life will change also. And that's hard, but it's also not something I know I won't get through, which is not to diminish him or his impact in my world. But I think all of the loss and the tragedies and the life pivoting, also, I know no matter what, I'm going to make it through it. I can be super sad and super like, how is this going to be different? But I also know that it will be.
Yeah.
I have done this. I've lost people I've loved, people that are super close to me, and thinking now my whole world is over, but it hasn't been. It's never been.
Yeah.
That version of my world is over, but my world doesn't end.
Yeah.
And if I let it end, if I just went back into a blanket burrito or the corner of my couch, that's not respecting him. It's not respecting the other people that I've lost. That's not the life that they would want for me. It's certainly not the life that they would live if the opposite had happened. If he was here and I suddenly wasn't, I don't expect that he would just curl up into a ball and not do anything. No, go live, go love, go fill all your dreams, because now I can't. And that maybe is a power thing that or the positive thing I can get from all of that. You know, when my career was over and I thought, okay, now I'm not going to go back into nursing. I can't do nursing care. I can't do fine motor skills with my right hand. Like, okay, now what is my life going to look like? And that's kind of where I've been rebuilding from. And it was devastating, and it's a loss of the life I thought I would have. It's an ego death of like, I now won't like save any lives, you know, like there's a huge amount of grief and loss that goes with that I probably haven't given myself much credit for. And I think probably other people in my life haven't. You know, there's the thought of I live in pain all day, every day. Yeah. And that's not going to change.
Right.
So yeah, I spent years on my couch and in the corner and numbing with all these different things, but what did that do? It didn't get me anywhere. It didn't add value to my life or anyone else's. So now how do I change and shift to live this way? How do I take the pain that I deal with every day and make it worth something? How do I... Okay, so I'm not going to make my money working in hospitals and taking care of people. How am I going to make my money and take care of myself now? How am I going to put a difference or healing into the world that I wanted to do one way? How do I do that another way? I don't know if I've found that yet. Right. I think I have had ideas and ways, and even was driving towards something recently that I thought, this is how I'll do it. And now part of me is like, is that how I want to do it? Is that what I need to do in the world anymore? Yeah. You know, like I was focusing on things. I think part of it was just to focus on, or to say like, I know I can do that. I know I can be good at that. I know I can make that thing successful. But is that the reason why I want to go into it? Right. Is because I can make it? Is that really what my heart's telling me to do? And now with this, it's like a gut check for everything. Yeah. Like, are all the decisions I was making, were they all for me? Were they all for truly what I want to fulfill my life? Or was it because I thought it could be good for other people? Yeah. Like I could help a bunch of other people if I do X, Y, and Z. And now I need to check myself and say like, okay, which avenues do I want to go down? Which avenues is where I want to spend all my time? Yeah. Do I want to work for the next 3 months, 18 hours a day building something? Or do I want to go and explore and live and do other things for those 18 hours a day? Yeah. Right now I'm in a crossroads. I don't know. Yeah. And I'm trying to give myself the time to make sure I'm making those decisions from a healed spot, from this is what is truly going to add value, not only to other people's lives, but to my own. Yeah. And right now, I'm not sure which direction to go, if I'm honest. I have a couple avenues, and I'm wanting to go down all of them and none of them. Yeah. Well, one of the things that I really admire and appreciate about you is that you are constantly seeking and you're constantly asking questions. And
you're not just rolled up in a blanket burrito on the couch. You've done that. In the meantime, you started a podcast.
Yeah.
So that you can have conversations with people and, perhaps glean some information from a conversation that you've had with someone here or at the bar. And the road is being laid out for you. You may not see the end yet, but you're on that road, and it's got its ups and it's got its downs. But when you have someone like your grandmother to say, look at you, you're glowing. Your light shines. You may not recognize that it's happening, but it's there. And when you are shining, you're attracting things to you that are going to serve you in your life. Life will always give you things that you're not expecting.
Yeah, it does.
But know that at your very core, you are glowing, you are radiant, and you attract good people such as myself into your life. And, I hope that helps you to get a new perspective on things as well. It's really, it's tragic to have the rug pulled out from you over and over again, yet you keep getting back up a little stronger.
It's funny that you use that term, is because it's one thing my ex-husband would always do, is every time I was secure, and it took me a long time to realize this, every time I'd be really good and secure somewhere, he would pull the rug out. And I use that phrase all the time, referencing him. Mm-hmm. When we first moved to a different state together, we were there and I was in school and we were doing stuff, and he wanted to move all of a sudden. It was quick and it was dirty. Let's go, let's move, let's do it. So we did. And I got settled there, and then the same thing. And so that's just a funny kind of little term that just kind of spiked in me, is because it's the way I would refer it. He liked to keep control. And so anytime I started to kind of get into a position where I'm like, all right, now I can control this, he wanted to pull that rug out to make sure that he was the one that's in control. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I just thought, since we're doing a thing about me,
of course,
I will share that. Yeah. So my story, I guess, we're in the tragedy part of it. I married my best friend. I thought we'd been together for 10 years before we got engaged. I had never wanted to be married. Mm-hmm. I was quite vocal about not being married and no kids. I have over 100 first cousins. On my mom's side, I'm the third oldest. And so on her side, there's 20 something kids that come after me. And as the only girl for 10 years, my job was to take care of the kids, to be the helper, to, kids were to be seen and not heard. My job was to help make their lives easier. I was a woman, so, rearing kids was kind of my thing. And so by the time I was in my 20s, I raised babies. Mm-hmm. I have a cousin who, when she had her baby 2 years ago, I was like, my baby's having a baby. And I truly believe that. And I said it to her dad, and he's like, I know, can you believe this? I'm like, our baby's having a baby. I remember when her parents got married. I was there when her mom was pregnant. I've been there since the day she was born. She was born right after my grandfather died. So, part of us was like, his spirit is in her. And some days that's really true.
Yeah.
One of my uncles had 4 kids. I babysat all of them. At one of their weddings, he was saying something about the babysitter. And I was like, made a snide comment. And one of his friends was like, wait, you're the babysitter? And he's like, how old are you? And I was like, oh, I'm in my 40s. And he's like, that's not old enough to be his babysitter. Yeah, it was the 80s and 90s. It was a different time.
Yeah.
That was my life. Responsibility has always been something that I was good at, I guess. And so to be not responsible now feels like kind of free. But so I didn't want kids when I grew up. And I was really vocal about that. I also didn't know if I would be able to have kids. I was diagnosed with endometriosis by the time I was 11. Wow. I had 2 surgeries in high school for it and was in chemical menopause most of my life, and dealing with excruciating pain every month, even with all of those interventions. So pain was not anything I'm unfamiliar with. Mm-hmm. I got a hysterectomy after I left my ex-husband. Or actually, we were still married when I did it. I left. I knew we were getting divorced. And it was one of the best decisions I ever made. Not having that pain on top of my neck pain was a huge relief also. Dealing with one chronic pain condition is enough. Dealing with two was too much. But I used to deal with two. So there was years where I was in pain for my neck, and then my ovaries would hate me, and then I'd be in double pain, and then sometimes it would be like which pain is beating out the other.
Wow. Yeah.
And so I took steps to eliminate that pain, and then my ex-husband he hated me because I couldn't have kids. He really wanted me to, and I kind of backed into situations for him and against myself to try to make him happy. And I'm glad I didn't go further into that. I'm glad that, as horrible as it to say, I'm glad I had miscarriages and not anything stuck. Because it would have kept me there. It would have kept me trapped and out of obligation.
Yeah.
And out of, this is what you do. And this is what the life you're supposed to live. Luckily, for whatever reason, I had moments of clarity in my life where I fought through all of that.
Yeah.
Leaving him and still being in love was one of the hardest things I've ever done. In the middle of leaving him, he didn't want me to leave. And, we went back and forth on a bunch of things. And his mom, who had been sick, she had early onset Parkinson's. She took a turn for the worse not long after I left. Luckily, she and I had talked about me leaving. She'd kind of given me permission. Her mother had kind of given me permission in a weird way. And so I went to see her several times in hospice while she was dying. And it was weird and uncomfortable. And then when she died and I went into her funeral, it's one of the hardest things I've ever done. To have people that I thought were friends and family for almost 15 years just ignore me and not talk to me. And it was just one of the hardest things. But I'm glad I went through it.
Yeah.
I knew I would get through it. A few hours of being unimaginably uncomfortable and having some of those looks, it sucked. But I wasn't there for them.
Right.
I was there to honor a woman who I loved, who had treated me very well for my whole amount of time knowing her. Would it have been easier not to show up? Maybe. Would it have been a huge disrespect for her not to show up? Abso-fucking-lutely. So in order to honor her, I had to put myself through a situation that she would not have wanted me in.
Yeah.
But it's what I had, there are moments like that I'm glad that I kind of have this, I don't care if you don't like me, I'm going to do what I feel is right no matter.
Yeah.
And in those moments, sometimes it can be super clear and super, almost give you the fortitude to stand there and take those looks because it's not about them.
Yeah.
I would never want anyone else to have to go through that. But those moments, I think, it's kind of funny. Such a strong woman against the loss of someone else.
Yeah.
It's just kind of struck me there for a moment. Yeah, I mean, my life has been marked by tragedy.
Yeah.
There isn't a way around it, whether it's the losing of someone who's meant something, the losing of parts of myself, literally or figuratively. There are those days when someone says to me, like, well, you don't understand because you're so happy. I choose happiness every day.
Yes.
I choose to find my joy, and I choose to find it sometimes in the small things, in my cup of coffee, in my clean sheets, in my hot shower. Or there's other times when I walk out and it's just a beautiful day and that sun just smacks you in the face, is warm, and that's a moment of joy for me.
Yeah.
So I think, I can be a raging cunt and I'm proud of those moments, but I am not more often than I am a ray of fucking sunshine. And I get to be that because I choose it.
Yeah. And so this is exactly it. That your light shines, and you don't necessarily have to be on stage to do it. You're happy, you're finding your joy, your light is shining. So it could be just you in the sunshine having a moment.
Yeah.
And that's amazing.
It is.
I wanted to skip back just a little bit, talking about you being the third eldest and taking care. And I saw a connection to being of service and being behind the bar. How do you feel that taking care of people when you're tending bar relates to that taking care of the kids?
Oh, it's the same. It's the same. I get the same joy out of, and it's one of the reasons why I love a dive bar, is because I see the same people every day. I could work at some restaurant in San Francisco and probably make a shit ton more money. I'm good at what I do.
Yeah.
But I enjoy the parts of it where I see the same people all the time, where I know what's going on in your life, where you're comfortable enough sharing, because I don't come from a place of judgment. I come from a place of curiosity on what's going on in your life, what's happening. I want to know the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
Tell me everything. Let's figure it out together. You're having a shitty ass day. Like, yeah, bro, that's a shitty ass day.
Yeah.
Like, I like being the person that you know that you can come to, and I will hear you, and I will acknowledge whatever it is, and I will either celebrate with you, or I'll be like, all right, bro, this sucks. Like, what helps you when you're this down? Like, I think a lot of that I get from being that person in my family, to walking into whatever day like my aunt and uncle are having and figuring out, all right, you guys have to get to work. These two need this. Like, how do I help make everything a little bit better? I think I was probably a people pleaser from the start. Like, it's probably something innate in me.
Yeah.
But I think growing up that way and being a person that was thrown in to solve problems, in a way, it's taught me to solve problems.
Yeah.
Like, I could get dropped off and not have any idea of what the scene I'm walking into, but I knew it was my job to get the parents out the door, to get the kids what they needed, and to reset whatever is going on.
Yeah.
And that's probably makes me good at what I do. I love a dive bar also because my grandfather used to bring them to me. Like, he got sober before I was born, or just as I was born. But he would have his routine, and so he would go to the local bar on his days to put his bets in, or to check in on the guys. You know, he's a vet, so a lot of those guys are all vets. So it was like, even when he wasn't drinking, it was, all right, we're going to take the dog to this place, we're going to drop this off, and then we're going to stop by Triple D's and have a root beer float instead of eight beers, you know? So that feeling of community I think I've had as a kid is instilled for me between that and having a big family. Having a big family is, I didn't have to worry about friends, kind of. I did, and I have my friends, but when you have your cousins that you're built into having dinner with 1 or 2 days a week, and that's what we did, there's a built-in network.
Yeah.
And now I live in a state where I'm not related to anyone, which gives me, one, a huge sense of freedom, and I don't have those obligations of family that I would feel like if I still lived in Massachusetts. But I still want that community. I still want to have those kind of obligations and that community and that feeling of, I can go to someone's, if I'm in the mood, I can go to my friend's kid's baseball game. You know, like when I really miss my niece and nephew, I can go check in on one of these kids. I can send them a text too, but it's like also have that physical kind of feeling, and I can say to them, hey, just saw this other 12-year-old's game. You know, like, I like to be able to do that. I want to be able to relate to them and know what's going on in their life, but I also like my freedom here. So by building that community and building a space where I get to kind of fill the same role, it's probably self-serving. It's probably one of the reasons why I'm good at it, but it's also probably because it's somewhat self-serving.
Right. Yeah. My next question is twofold. So tell us about a time when you were the babysitter and you had to tell someone, oh, no, you don't.
Oh, I've had lots of those.
And then tell us about a time as a bartender where you had to tell somebody, oh, no, you don't.
Oh, I have those all the time.
I'm sure.
As
but
a
like a good, memorable.
Less because the kids all
respected you.
Yeah, I mean,
because you were older.
Yeah, because I was older, because it was the role I filled in their life from the moment they were kind of around. I was just like a mini adult. I also kind of am goofy and funny, and, you know, am not I didn't raise them the way I was raised.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I will say stuff that I shouldn't say in front of them. You know, my nephew, actually, there you go. My niece and nephew, my brother's kids, being with them was harder than being with any of my cousins because I do feel more of a role of like another parent as opposed to the babysitter.
Yeah.
You know, I refer to those kids as my kids all the time. My sister-in-law is gracious enough that she's never offended when I'm like, how are my kids doing? Or give me my kid. And they love it. But, you know, I said a bad word one day and my nephew looked at me and was like, Chevy. And I was like, I know, dude. Sometimes Chevy says bad words and it's okay. And he just looked at me and was like, okay. And like, that was it. End of story.
Yeah.
Where like with my dad, sometimes I'll be like, Papa, you can't say that. And Papa, this. It was like, no, it's just an accepting kind of like, all right.
Uh-huh.
And that's like a freedom too, where like, I don't know, I get to talk to them in a slightly different way.
Yeah.
Where I am their boss, but I also had them convinced that 30-17 was an age.
What?
Well, because when they were little and, you know, I had no kids.
Yeah.
I wasn't working because I was still out on injury. And so one of my nephew was like, Chevy, like, are you an adult?
Uh-huh.
And at that point, I think my ex-husband was still kind of around, but they didn't see him that often.
Yeah.
They knew we were married, but he wasn't around as often as I was. And so my nephew was like, you know, you don't have a job and you don't have kids. So like, you're not an adult, but you're not a kid.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, oh yeah, I'm in between. I'm 30-17.
I like that.
So they just, you know, and they went with it. They were
Yeah.
like, all right, yeah, because your life doesn't make sense. And because kids, you are either a kid or an adult.
Right.
And I was neither actually at that point, you know?
Yeah.
I was being able to travel wherever I had this magical house in New York that they had never been to. And I would come to Boston whenever they wanted me to, or I'd stay in Boston for sometimes days on end, or, you know, and for whatever they wanted and needed. So when they were 4 and 5, I was there all the time. And then for, you know, a good year and a half, I was kind of bouncing between where my ex-husband was and where at my parents' house.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could be there for any kind of little tiny event or 5-minute school performance that they had. But in their minds, it didn't make sense how this other adult could have so much freedom and how they didn't have children and how they didn't have a job and how they, so, you know, it was like a nice, easy 30-17.
Right. I really like that.
Yeah. But to tell them no on something, they listened to me. Like I had an easier time than my brother ever would with them. Because kids will always behave better for their non-parent.
Right.
And that's the secret to babysitting.
But I mean, like, what is the most audacious thing that they tried where you had to just put the kibosh
well,
on
there was
it?
one day when we went to the Museum of Science, and I have pictures for this. And I said to them, we can go in the gift shop, but you're not getting anything. And they were like, yeah, okay. And my nephew really wanted something. And I was like, no, dude, I already told you. Expectations were already set. And so he, full out tantrum on the floor, screaming, crying. Okay. And I just stood there and watched.
Uh-huh.
Not embarrassed, not anything. Just let it out, bro. I know it's super disappointing.
Right.
And then eventually I got him off the floor and he sat in the corner and moped. And I have pictures of him looking into the corner. I'm like, okay, how long do you want to sit here?
Right.
It's not going to change it.
Right.
I'm still not going to buy you that thing.
Yeah.
I told you before. I gave you the option of us going in or not going in.
Mm-hmm.
Based on the information. And like, I hate you. Okay.
Right.
You can hate me. We'll stand here until you're ready to not hate me.
Right.
I think we stood there for 25 minutes.
Oh. Yeah.
Okay. Feel your feelings, dude. Like, let it out. I'm not going to change anything. I'm not buying you that. I already told you I wasn't.
Yeah.
And it's hard and it sucks to stand there.
Sure.
Oh my God. And it feels like forever. But
were their
eventually,
parents just looking at you like, what's wrong with you? Why don't you?
I'm like, yeah. Mm-hmm. You see this, you know. I think I actually said to one mom, you know what this is like.
Oh.
And it was just like, I'm not going to be embarrassed.
Yeah.
I'm not. Like, it's uncomfortable and it sucks. But I also, kid, I'm not buying you shit.
Right. Right.
Like, I brought you here. I brought you lunch.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to go here afterwards. Like, you're not also getting a gift.
Yeah.
1, I don't make that much money.
Yeah.
2, appreciate what you do have.
Yeah, I agree.
And so, yeah. And I went home. My brother's like, how was your day? I'm like, oh, it's good. Besides Mikey was an asshole for a little bit. Like, flat out. Like,
Yeah.
but I think that also comes with, I've been around kids my whole life.
Sure.
You know, like I was probably 12 or 13, maybe 14. And I brought a bunch of my cousins' kids. So I have cousins that are my age or younger. I also have cousins that are older than my aunts and uncles because my dad's family is so big. So one of my cousins, I brought her kids with us to the store one day. And I remember coming back and saying to her, like, you got to do something about that kid or else she's going to end up on the pole with lots of tattoos. And my cousin will still tell that story to this day. And her kid has ended up on a pole with lots of tattoos.
Really? Wow.
Because she was spoiled little brat. And like when she didn't get what she wanted and she wanted all this other stuff. And I was just like, no, that's not how it happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember coming back and being like, I will not babysit her again until you get that under control.
Right.
And I don't think I ever did.
And it's so funny that she ended up just like that.
Yeah, she may not have been on the pole.
Well.
But she definitely had all the tattoos and piercings that I predicted. She probably has been on the pole.
What is an occasion as a bartender where somebody just tried pulling some shit and you're just
all the time.
All the time.
Yeah, all the time. Even we just worked World Goth Day.
Yeah.
And I was just at the door. It's not a bar thing, but I was at the door and someone was super upset that we weren't taking cash at the door. I'm like, we are an all digital event this year. And he didn't come to me, he came at me. Like 1 or 2 older women came up and they were like, oh, I don't know how to do that. So we'd either try to walk them through or 1 or 2 of them, we were just like, you know what, give us the $10 and go and, you know.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah. And so it's not my job is to run the door the way I've been explained to run it. It's not, I cannot tell you why I'm doing it. I also do not have the time. There are 2,000 people coming through this door. I do not have time to listen to why you, Joe Schmo, don't think you should have to do what everyone else does. I also don't have the patience for it, especially this week I didn't. But this guy came up and he was super like, I don't want to have to do that. I'm like, well, that's how you can come in.
Right.
And he's like, well, I don't want to. Then don't come in.
Right.
And he just looked at me. I'm not going to fight with you about it. These are the rules. You can follow them or not.
Yeah.
If you don't want to follow them, good on you. You are not that special. Keep walking.
Yeah.
You want me to come in. No, I don't. Because if you're going to be rude to me, you're going to be rude to the people inside. You're going to be rude to our vendors.
Yeah.
You're going to be rude to the bartenders. You're going to be rude to the performers.
Right.
Because for whatever reason, you think you don't have to follow the rules.
Yeah.
Out of my face.
They're all digital in there.
Right.
Your cash is not going to work.
Right. And like some of the vendors were taking cash. Great. That's up to them. But to get through this door, you have to follow some directions.
Yeah.
And if you can't, don't come through.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like dealing with kids. It's the same thing. Like when someone's at the bar and they're being obnoxious and loud. And I had a guy the other day that kept saying racist shit. And I was nice about it at first. I'm like, I can hear you. We don't do that in this bar. We don't do this. No matter if I was not standing here, the bar that I work at is not a bar for racists. If you are a white person that only wants to hang out with a white person, go find somewhere else. We are not your fucking spot. No place I ever work in will ever have that.
Yeah.
I would not work in a place like that.
Yeah.
So don't tell my customers to speak English. Don't tell my customers to do anything. Get the fuck out of my door.
Right.
I don't care how often you come in here. I don't care how much money you spend.
Right.
Get out.
Yeah.
And I have no problem. Like when someone's hurtful like that, I don't take it. I will not take it. I don't care how much money you spend because you know what? Your money will leave, but 4 more people will come in spending their money. And I'd rather take the money from the people that I want to spend time with than some racist piece of shit.
Right. And here, right now, is another reason why I admire and appreciate you. Because this is a different way that your light shines. This is more like a spotlight on the assholes.
Yeah.
You know? Like, I'm not going to tolerate your bullshit.
Yeah.
And when your whole demeanor changes when you're in this part of yourself. And it's fantastic that you can be in the same, conversation that we've been having, so vulnerable to the point of tears, to the point where it's like, I'll slash a bitch.
Yeah.
You know.
When it comes to someone, I guess it's because I've always been a babysitter or protector, and I look at my customers, like a few of my older customers will ask me if I'm babysitting tonight.
Yeah, right.
And they're asking me if I'm working or if I'm bartending. Yeah, I am. Like, because if you're in my bar, does not matter how old you are.
Right.
I guess I'm an internal babysitter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how old you are. I'm going to make sure that you're protected and that you are in a safe space where you get to be you and you get to enjoy your time, because you're not doing it to be an asshole or to hurt anyone else. So I'm not going to let anyone else come in to be an asshole or to hurt you.
Yeah.
Whether it turns physical, I will stand in that way. Like I have probably almost gotten myself into some trouble that way, but most bullies don't like someone that stands up to them.
Correct.
And I've been bullied my whole life. Come at me. Like, when I was in 5th grade and or 6th grade and girls were trying to be mean to me because I didn't wash my hair that day. And I was getting up going, "You're lucky I got out of bed." Like, my aunt just died and her kids are homeless. Like, what do you care about whether or not I brushed my hair? Like, what is going on in your world?
Right.
Like, I think because I've always had that kind of, when it comes to those moments, like, yeah, you have no, like, there's a part of me that gets a little kind of hoodish, if you want to call it that. Like, where I come from a city, I come from a diverse background. I went to school with a lot of white kids, but that's not where I grew up. Like, one of my grandmothers lived in a mostly Spanish-speaking neighborhood, so I was the only white girl on the block sometimes. Like, that doesn't mean really anything, because at kids, we didn't know, we didn't care.
Yeah.
Like, are you cool or not? Like, but I do get very defensive when someone tries to hurt someone else, especially for no reason.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's when you're working, they better watch out.
Yeah. Well, then if I'm working, then that's my house.
Yeah.
You're coming to and I have now explained that to so many people. If I'm behind the bar, that is an extension of my living room.
Right.
For all intents and purposes. I'm in charge. Like, what happens in that room is on me.
Yeah.
And it's not only just a good time way. It's if a fight happens, the liability is actually on me.
Absolutely.
If someone gets up from my bar that's been drinking there all day and gets into an accident, that's on me.
It sure
I can
is.
get sued for that.
Right.
And I think sometimes people forget that because it doesn't happen that often. I don't. I'm always watching my own six because I'm the only one that has it.
Yeah.
Like, I've had people that I should have been able to count on me disappoint me in huge ways. When you're a little kid and you're going to the people that are your adults in your safety spot and you're saying, like, wait, I don't understand this. And they just tell you, you don't have to. We have it. Well, you don't have it. You haven't had it.
Right.
Because you didn't even know what was going on. To then tell a kid, like, well, you don't have to be worried about it. There's no way I'm not going to be worried about it.
Yeah.
And so I think as an adult, that's kind of carried me through now. Like, I look at all my angles all the time. My best friend's dad growing up was a homicide detective, and he gave us invaluable skills. He would train us when we would be going some places. Like, how many blue cars did we drive by, or how many people were on that corner? He made us learn about our surroundings and how to be in the world and be protected.
Yeah.
And I think that has served me well. And I do that. That's how I live. I always know what's going on in a room. Sometimes I'm paying less attention to someone talking to me because I can see something else going off.
Right.
And sometimes I hate that about myself. And other times I know I can balance it and I can still hear enough of what you're saying to me while I'm watching what's going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes it probably makes me a little less present in a moment, but it also makes me really present in the overall.
Right. That's quite a skill to have.
Yeah.
To be hyper aware like that.
It is, but it's also exhausting sometimes.
I bet.
It's sometimes I don't want to be out all day because to have to be so aware all the time. And then sometimes I drink too much, which makes me not aware. And then the next day I have a hangover on the fact that I'd put myself in a situation that could have gone sideways where I couldn't take care of myself, or on a night where I drink too much and I don't really remember and I have rolling brownouts, as we sometimes call them. Like, I remember this and that. Like, the next day, instead of I have like a guilt and a shame that's attached to that because I left myself in a place that was extra vulnerable, that put my safety into someone else's hands, and that I should not have done. Yeah. Because if something then happens to me, it's not only my kind of guilt, but it's the person that I was with guilt.
Yeah.
We didn't know she was, and I don't want to put that onto someone else. which is probably more aware than most people walk through the world.
Yeah.
But it's also just part of who I am and how I operate.
Yeah. So what pearl of wisdom can you give to somebody to help them be more aware?
I think just to learn to notice your surroundings. Like if you're someone that can go out to a dinner and not realize how many tables have sat and gotten up around you, learn there. Just start to be aware of what changes are happening around you.
Yeah.
Not that you have to be hyper aware like I am, but just aware. Like pay attention to the people that are around you. So like if you see someone's face a second time in that same night, it's not, you notice it. You know, like if you're out at one bar and that person shows back up at the second place, you're aware enough of your surroundings that you would recognize that.
Sure.
Just do like a little quick inventory of where you're at and who's in the room. That's it. That's where I would start. It's like, that's how you learn to build that skill.
Right. It's fascinating to me to see people out for a walk or something and they're on their phone, not even watching what they're doing, and then they trip over something.
Girls that have both headsets in.
Oh, yeah.
That to me is a woman that's never been in a really dangerous situation at night. Or and part of me is jealous of those women that I see that walk around with either both headsets in or the huge headphones on. Like, you know, I would never walk down the street with a Bose headset on. I don't know if maybe an airplane is the only place I would feel safe putting on noise canceling headphones.
Right.
On an airplane would probably be the only place I would find those acceptable for a woman.
Yeah.
Which sucks to say. But also, I don't know how a woman walks down the street with those in.
Yeah.
Or on. Or how a girl will run down the street with both headsets in. If I can come up and surprise you, that shocks me.
That could have been, yeah.
Yeah. Because broad daylight or at night. And I'm not saying if she has them and she's asking for it. That's not what I'm saying at all.
Right.
I find their comfort intimidating. Like, I wish I could feel that comfortable.
Right. Is it comfort or is it naivete?
It's probably naivete.
Yeah.
But I choose to say it's comfort. You know,
Yeah.
I hate the fact that they have that naivete.
Yeah.
But I also am envious of it. I want to know what it's like to be able to walk down the street and not worry about what's behind you or what's in that doorway, but that's not my world.
Yeah.
You know, I've had that conversation with a guy before about how most women, when they leave the house, your first thoughts are, okay, how do I make it back here without being murdered? And I've had that conversation with a few guys that be like, no, that's not really how women think. And every woman my age chimes back in and be like, oh no, that is.
Yeah.
Like, we always have to think about, where did I park? Where are the blind spots from here to my car? Where are the blind spots from my car to wherever I'm going into next? If I'm going to take this walk, where are the spots that I know I have to be wary of? Okay, if I'm going to go on this route, is that a good route to go on if it's going to get dark later? If it's already dark, which route do I stay on? Which streets do I know are good streets? Which streets do I know have dark spots where I could be in trouble? Like, that's honestly how I live my life.
Yeah. You sound like someone that was in the know of somebody that was a homicide detective or something. Because
or like a spy.
That's how you're thinking. Yeah.
But that's, a lot of women didn't have a friend's dad that was a cop who think like this.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of us do it out of survival. A lot of us do it depending on where we're from.
Yeah.
Or just I have yet to be attacked and I don't want to.
Right. And I've heard you mention in previous podcasts about that fear of meeting and bringing somebody home because you're probably going to end up murdered. Right. How does that get in the way of your meeting somebody and bringing them over?
Probably huge. Like, I stopped doing the online dating thing a few months ago just because I couldn't take getting dick pics anymore.
Oh.
Dick pics, like, unless I've seen it in person, I am not, like, there are some girls that love a dick pic, and I do not shame them. If your dick has not been in my hand or my mouth, and I haven't seen it in person, it should not live on my phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's just me. I am kind of a little bit of a prude in that way, maybe. But like me talking to a guy and him being like, me being like, he's kind of a, like, I don't think I'm going to go out with him. Him sending me a dick pic is not going to sway me the other way.
Right. Yeah.
Maybe it works for some chicks. I am not one of them. But the door dashing dick to my house, or the like, I'm not ever going to, before I meet you, I'm going to let you know where I live thing is
Right.
to me is just asinine and wild. For some reason, yes, in my brain, to meet a guy at the bar and bring him home seems more safe to me than meeting a guy on an app and having him meet me at the house. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's because the people at the bar have seen us. Most bars have cameras, so you know I left with him. Maybe there is a part of that that's in there. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's I don't really meet guys in a bar and bring them home with me, so I think it would be more like acceptable. I don't know, going back to their house is an option. Like, get me a hotel room. Just having someone you don't know access to where you live. Yeah. To me, just has always been ingrained to me as a little kid. Like, you don't tell them. You don't get into a car. I mean, even now, lifts is a weird thing for me.
Sure.
Like, back in the day, you never got into a car with a stranger.
Right. Now you're paying to do it.
Yeah. Now we pay them. We give them exactly where we are and exactly where we're going.
Yeah.
You know, like I've had an Uber driver Lyft driver drop me off and be a little weird with me, and one hold my hand and like been like, "Oh, don't you want company?" No, I don't want company. And now this dude knows exactly where I live. Like
wow.
That to me is uncomfortable. I sometimes will still have my Lyft driver drop me off across the street.
Right.
Or I live in an apartment building, so at least then they don't know what apartment I live in.
Right.
But still, to me, that is a weird thing.
Yeah. I don't remember exactly where I heard it, but if they start asking questions, tell them I'm going to my friend's house.
Right.
Or, meeting family or whatever the case may be, just to...
But even still, like, they picked me up. They know two of the points that I was at. So especially, like, if I am getting off the work and I take a lift somewhere else, like, it just, to me, the 90s really stuck with me. Like, we were going to get killed by everything, a van would come by and kids would be gone. Like, that was a real thing or maybe it wasn't, you know what I mean? But it was like instilled in us enough that the fear was real. Yeah. And then, it does, I am jaded. And when it probably has hindered me meeting people. Yeah. I think I'm also okay with it because that's not how I'm going to meet my person. Right. In a weird way, I think I'm okay with it. Yeah. But yeah, no, it does. Like, I have met dudes out in a bar a couple times have been thought like, oh, we could probably have some fun. Yeah. Let's go to your house. And if they're like, oh, I can't host, also gives me a red flag. Right. Like, all right, well, if you can't host, then who else is there or whatever. But yeah, I also get very weird around hooking up with guys because I have, weirdness that I'm still healing from that. Like the thought of just being someone's sex object to me it makes me feel cheap in a way that I don't appreciate. I want to get over that. I want to be able to just go fuck someone with no emotional kind of or fear of an vulnerability hangover. Yeah. I just haven't gotten there yet. I think I've gotten closer. Yeah. Because I'm a big fan of a friend with benefits. I like someone that I can go to that is the same person that we have kind of a connection to, but we also know like this is what it is. And we do care about each other on some level, but we know we don't want to be married or be together forever. Yeah. But we have chemistry and the sex is good. I am great with that. Like that's probably where I've spent most of my relationships. Right. Yeah. Is like, not really dating people, but being like, this is what we are. And these kind of avenues, and that's go fuck someone else, but like let me know when you're free and we'll be safe and whatever, but like I'm okay with you going and do that thing, but when I call you I want you.
And there is a fulfillment in that, isn't there?
And it's serving needs that you both know need to be met. Like I'm a happier person when I have regular sex. I'm a more productive person. I know the things that are benefits to me. Yeah. But I also know that the person that I need to, that helps me with that is also a person that I can call and say, let's have a beer. Like we can be friends.
It's not always just about
the sex. Yeah. But to have someone that's just a sex thing, I have not found that yet. Maybe I will.
Yeah.
I probably am a little bit guarded around it.
Mm-hmm.
I also have trauma there, so like that adds layers to it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
A lot of it is just afraid of the thoughts and the comments and which I hate that that's true, but it is.
Yeah.
I don't want to have 4 guys that have sat at my bar that I've fucked. I don't. That's not comfortable to me. That's not anywhere I want to be. I don't want the 2 of them to look at each other across the room after I say something and then be like, you know what that means. That's a feeling I don't like.
Right.
And it's just, I've never kind of fostered that. So maybe it's fine. Maybe it's, I've had this is an island. A lot of my customers have slept with each other, you know, and I don't see that happen as often as I think I probably in my brain it would, you know, and it's fine for other people. But for me, it's just not where I want to operate from.
Yeah. Yeah. That's respectable.
But yeah, it probably has. My fear of being murdered is probably stopped a lot of relationships.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it also serves me. I'm still here.
You're still here. Thank goodness for that. I'm kind of feeling like I need to wrap.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same.
I could keep talking.
Yeah. No, I'm kind of spent. I hope that y'all have gotten to know me a little bit more.
I certainly have.
I am always coming from a place of curiosity and love and probably in some way trying to fix the problem. Or at least hold space for it to know that I can't fix it, but it will feel less like a soul-crushing moment in a few days.
And all the while, still learning about yourself and still knowing that it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to be pissed.
It is.
It's okay to tell people, no, this is not about you.
Yeah, it is. And sometimes I have to be better at, in the moment, telling people kind of when I think they're being an asshole. Sometimes I think I hold space for it longer than I should, so people feel like they can come when they're being an asshole. And sometimes I have to get better at that, at being like, no, this is not where you come for that.
Yeah.
But I am a work in progress. I am always learning. I am always trying to do better. Sometimes I fuck up majorly, or I say the wrong thing, or I am too harsh with someone, and I hate those moments.
Yeah.
But also call me out on them, because I'll always be honest with you.
Right.
The one thing about me is you'll always know where you stand. I'll always respect you. I may not want you to cross my threshold.
Yeah.
Whether you're welcome in my home is very different than if you're welcome in my bar. You know, I do have boundaries that I am pretty strict on. Yeah. But I do always try to be a caring, loving spot for someone. Because I think everyone deserves it, no matter what you've done in the past, I think people can always change. I think if they want to, they will. I think if they don't want to, then that's up to them. And you need to hold space for them away from you, but you need to hold space for them to exist.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thanks,
You're
Raul.
such a great person. I really appreciate
everyone
you.
Tricked. No. I'm just kidding.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raul. And thank you all. And know our hearts are broken with you, whether you knew the person that we're mourning or you have your own person that you're mourning, that time does heal everything. It never makes it go away. It just makes it easier to live with. And that finding your joy not only helps you, but it helps them. So thanks, y'all. We love you. Go find your joy, and we'll see you next time.